When I first moved to Pittsburgh, I didn't have a job. I came here from Europe. I didn't know the city really at all. So there was a lot of sitting at my house and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I went to school for education, which is like crazy considering how much I've talked about how I knew I wanted to be in, this creative theatrical film television world since I was like a child. But when I moved to Pittsburgh, I ended up finding a very close by talent office, I'm gonna call it, who did a lot of like small scale commercial projects, did things along those lines. And she happened to be like 2 minutes from my house, like literally. And it almost felt like kismet at the time because I was just like really considering going back into it. I didn't really have anything else planned, didn't really know what was going on in like what I wanted to do for my actual adult career. And within 2 days of finding her, she'd sent me out on a commercial project for a restaurant that unfortunately no longer exists. I hope they're doing well. But then I met so many people on that project, and then like that was what catapulted me to doing more film stuff here in Pittsburgh. And that was right before the pandemic, which is kind of wild because I was finally gaining some traction and stuff. But then the pandemic, I met Zane Allen, who is now my co-head, the CEO of 3PT Productions, which is the company that I do most of my work with behind the scenes, my directing and producing stuff. And he had this project called Hiriath. And Hiriath, it was another psychological film. You're gonna see a pattern here. Another psychological film that I got to play a cop in. It was like a smaller bit or whatever, but that was also the project that I think I discovered what my branding was, like how I come across, more in like an authoritative kind of position, a little bit warmth, a lot of like conviction, a little bit of vulnerability. Like that's, my no nonsense kind of thing where I just kind of tell people how it is sometimes. That was like the first turning point where I was like, oh, like I like roles like this. And I was really grateful for the opportunity. And then Zane and I just became really, really good friends. And now we have a production company together. So it's been absolutely fantastic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and our guest today is an actor, singer, director, and producer. Please welcome to the show our special guest, Delaney Hathaway. Delaney, how are you doing today?
Oh, thank you so much, Ryan. I am feeling very excited to be here and a little cold because the weather changed very fast in PA. Right, I'm great.
Oh, okay. Well, I have always loved Pennsylvania. It's actually one of my favorite states. So that's cool that I have a guest who is coming from Pennsylvania. So first of all, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is super awesome.
Okay, and this podcast is all about creativity, and we already touched on some of the hats that you're wearing from being an actor, singer, producer, director. But I always like to start with the beginning. So my
Mhm.
first question for you is, when did you find a spark of interest towards creativity in your life?
Oh, wow. That makes me laugh because I had always had it from like a very, very young age. I think my mom put me in dance when I was like 3, and I laugh watching those videos back because I'm so clumsy as any 3-year-old would be. Tap dancing across the stage in like her first show. But from there on, like I wasn't just, I guess, stuck in that field. I like wanted to explore a bunch. And so with my dance background, I ended up going to musical theater. I did baton and gymnastics for a while, transitioned into more of like a sports kind of thing, but like always found my way back to being in the arts somehow. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. And I've always loved being in front of like the camera. I've always loved just like being creative and being like out there and wild and just having fun. So I think that's exactly what my parents would say about me too. But yeah, I would say the first memory though that I've had about it was, or that I like really, really remember was when I played in Stuart Little. My first ever stage play, I was like 6. And I was nervous as all get out. This was the first audition that I had ever had and had no clue what I was doing. But I had the best time, made best friends, and ended up doing it for like 3 or 4 years at a university in Michigan, which is where I used to live. And it was a really small liberal arts school called Siena Heights. And it was like my first like real memory of having like the best time being in this kind of creative arts world. And now here we are,
Yes.
so many years later, still doing it. So,
So you started off with dance, correct?
yes, I did. I did start off with dance. Hmm.
And how was it for you to transition from dance, or not, I don't want to say transition, but rather evolve from strictly dance to then uh speaking and singing? I mean, does it feel different or did it feel the same for you?
It's they're all such an expressive art form, and I didn't realize that there was a way that you were able to combine all of those things until I came across musical theater, and that wasn't in well until I was like in like middle school, tween teen years. But because I had those background skills of dancing and performing and things along those lines, I've always loved singing. Once I was able, once I discovered that there was a passion or an art form that combined all of those, it was almost seamless. Like it just made sense. It felt right. It felt like that was where I was meant to be. And then I just kind of never gave it up. And one thing that I think was a really positive wonderful thing that came out of it was something called show choir, which I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with that. I know that there's a lot of like show choirs out like west, like in the LA kind of area, but like the Midwest where I grew up, around like the Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois area, it was a huge, huge thing here. And it's if you've ever seen Glee, which I don't love to just like compare because Glee is its own very own thing. But that's like I feel like what most people would understand a show choir to be. It's very similar where they're like on stage and you're singing specific songs and you're dancing to them and kind of putting on like a mini musical without it being like the whole shebang. But it's really competitive. And the reason why I bring up Glee too is because that was filmed in Ohio, which is hilarious because it's part in that belt where all of that world existed. But in that, like, it just, I don't know, it was just so, it just made so much sense to me to be able to kind of put all of those skills into one area and like competing with it, which I didn't realize was even an option until I was like in the throes of it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's ever really like I don't, if it, what's a word I don't know if there was ever really like a hardship with it, more a sense of just adding more skills to my tool belt.
Okay, so it always felt natural for you.
Always felt natural. Always
Okay,
gravitated towards it.
as you got older and you started seeing the competition and the seriousness involved in theater and all of this, did anything in you change or evolve?
Yes. When that happened, I should preface this by saying my family moved around quite a bit when I was growing up. So there was a little bit of instability in the sense of when I started to really like something, we would often move to a new place. So I'd have to get reestablished. So there was a little bit in the middle where I kind of lost touch with the side of me that wanted to do more of the performing arts and went more of the sports route because that was what was available and accessible to me at the time. And then my eighth grade year, middle school, they were holding tryouts for color guard, which is part of our marching band. It's the people that usually are dancing with the flags and the sabers and the rifles and all that stuff that are a part of the group. Um, I ended up auditioning for that because I or tried out for that and made the team. And because I was in that, I ended up making friends with seniors and things like upperclassmen in the start of my high school career. So I had some stability in that sense. And then my freshman year, I had a hole in my schedule and it was filled with theater, which I was so not wanting to take at the time because I thought I had left that part of me behind. Like I wasn't really wanting to pursue it. But that class, that freshman year, and like having met a lot of the seniors in it because of color guard, because of marching band, and being connected again to that world, which is like funny how life is always like giving you exactly what you need and exactly the time that you need it. I ended up loving that class so much, and that's what reignited my spark to want to pursue this field or really be heavily involved in it again. And I think that was the moment that really transitioned or cemented. I'm going to use the word cemented that this was the life that I wanted to be a part of. And that's when I really started to like take it seriously, if you will. And so it was like almost like a maturity kind of a thing where even though that's really young, I was like 14 when I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to be doing. But that was just like that moment was like a pivot for me in my life and like everything that I wanted to do. And really got me back to what I loved doing, which was, performing, being creative, like being part of musical theater, my dancing, my performing, my singing, like all of that. And yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Listening to you speak about creativity and uh, how it's such a big part of your life, the way you're speaking about it sounds like you're speaking about a person, about a relationship, because then you were saying that you were kind of going away from it, but then uh, at the right time, just somehow you come back and you were saying you took it more seriously. Now that you took it more seriously, how did things change from there?
Oh, wow. Once I really committed to being like to accepting that that's where I was meant to be, it was a wild roller coaster. It was a wild roller coaster because I ended up aligning with people that were pursuing this as a career, that were actively looking for opportunities to be a part of it in any way that they could. And because they were being so ambitious about it, that was feeding into my ambition and also giving me an understanding and educating me, I guess, of like what other options there were to be able to pursue this kind of lifestyle, if you will. And from there, I ended up practicing so much and kind of just getting so good at it. I mean, theater and show choir and marching band, like all of those combined and doing them simultaneously, that was literally what like my life was entirely about during high school. Like it was like going from marching band practice straight into show choir practice. And then sometimes from there, I might be going straight into rehearsal. So it was like most of my evenings were just doing all of these different types of like rehearsals and practices and things along those lines. But because of it, I think I was just so aligned with what like my goals were and just so aligned with that lifestyle that I ended up booking or auditioning for a my first ever movie. I was a sophomore, I believe. And I was like one of the first two or three people to audition for this project. And I was auditioning for the lead. And I remember being in the room and being absolutely terrified because it was my first like film audition. So like with theater, when you audition, you're not recorded most of the time. That might be different now. I haven't done a no, that's actually a lie. That is very much a lie because the last theater audition I did, it was very much recorded. But that's so normal now. But when I was doing this like 12, 13 years ago, theater auditions weren't recorded. So whatever you did, you just did. And it was so organic and so authentic and so in the moment. And then you could kind of forget about it because you would never see it again. But with this film audition, like they record it specifically because they want to see what you look like on camera. They want to see if you are understanding of like how that all works, and they want to see like they want to be able to watch it back to go through everybody's auditions. So when it was recorded for the first time, I was like, oh, this is like scary. And like I don't really know what to think about this. Like I'm sitting alone in this room with like the director, the producer, the writer, and then like one of the other like lead actors or something. And there was like four people. And I was like, oh my God, like shortness of breath, anxiety over here. But it was, it worked out. I didn't hear anything from them for like 6 months. And so for my first movie audition, I was kind of like, okay, like that's so normal, right? Like, don't hear anything from them, didn't get it. It's my first audition, whatever. But then they ended up calling me back. So I'm now in my junior year of high school. And I'm like, oh my God, I got a call back. I get to do a chem read. I get to go back with this, like, and do it all over again. I was like, what? Like, I've never had that before. I didn't know what was going on. And ended up, it was between me and like three other people for this lead character. And a couple of more like weeks went by, and I was just like, is this normal? Is this normal? Like, do we not hear anything from film? Because in theater, you find out pretty quickly whether or not like you made it or what part you got. Like, so there's a little bit more like quicker closure in a way. In film, you don't always get that. And so once I got the call though, that they're like, so we want to move forward with you in this project, I was like, what? Mind you, I'm still doing all of my like theater stuff. So like that's still going on. But now I'm throwing in film audition or film rehearsals in the middle of it, doing like, weekend shoots and things along those lines because they were trying to work with my schedule and do this like all while I was like a junior and senior in high school. So that's why I was like, it it was so crazy how quickly it all happened, but also how it all happened because that was my first introduction into the film world. And then after that project, where I was at the time in Fort Wayne, Indiana, it was like a snowball effect. Because once like people, and this industry is so small, film specifically, theater too, but like when you find somebody that's really strong and really good, people hear about that and then more people want to work with you. So then your schedule gets busier and busier. And it's the same again in theater or in film. And so it just kept going and going and going. And then by the time my senior year rolled around, I think I was like head over heels. I had done I think two or three feature films at that point in time. I had done a couple of shorts. I was getting way more involved in the film world and still loving my theater side, but like just falling in love with this whole new medium, which was crazy. And that's just high school. We still have like 10 more years after that.
You were saying that, doing the filming of your audition was a little, I don't know if I should say nerve-wracking or maybe scary, but does that feeling ever go away?
Yes, I think it does. After a certain point, in various situations. Let me put that little caveat on there. Nowadays with filming, because that's primarily where I stick to is film TV. Like that's my medium that I love, 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 and have been. That's what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I already know that. But it's become so normal now to tape your auditions, often doing it at your own home nowadays. Um, I would show you my setup, but it's really messy in here right now. Like, it's funny because I'm like, this is my self-tape backdrop that I typically use in all of my auditions, unless it requests me to be somewhere else or if I'm traveling. So it's so normal now to be on camera. And a lot of theater auditions are actually done this way as well, where you can send in a self-tape versus going in person. Now, why I put that caveat on there is because there's a hybrid depending on your situation sometimes. At least in film, from my understanding and what I've experienced so far, the first primary round of auditions are usually just self-tape. So you're doing that from the comfort of your home. And then if you get a callback or if you get booked or if they want to do a chem read off of your original audition or things along those lines, depending what part of the process that you're in, those could be in person. And that's when things get a little like that's where I get a little like, I don't want to say nervous. I'm going to use the word excited because you get to meet the people that are behind the project. You're meeting them in person. Sometimes you're meeting your co-star, potential co-stars or your co-stars. And because we're so used to doing things by ourselves most of the time, when you're back in the room, it's almost electrifying because you're just like, oh my God, there's humans, there's other people that are a part of this process. Like, this is so exciting. And then it's also just reassuring in a way too, because it's like you've made it to the next step, which is great. So that's why I'm putting that little caveat on there. Now there are some auditions that I have that are huge, huge auditions. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it makes me nervous, more so than it does give me a little bit more of a sense of like pressure in a way because of the person that you're auditioning for, the project they're auditioning for is like so big. But I know too that that's going to change the more that that happens for me.
Mhm.
I think because right now I'm still in kind of an earlier stage of, I'm like in a transition period of getting out of more of the like smaller time projects that are more locally based and transitioning into bigger markets, which means more competition, but also higher caliber. That's going to keep happening for me. So the more that I do that, the more comfortable I'm going to get with it, of course. So like that's going to take off a lot of that pressure, a lot of that, anxiety and nervousness. But right now, because I'm in that transition phase, I do feel a lot of gravity a little bit with that. Just knowing that like I want to do the best that I possibly can to book the room, if you will. So yeah, once I get like more into it, I think it's just gonna it's such an exciting opportunity, honestly, every time.
And I'm excited for you because we really, from hearing your story, we really see how you've grown and how you're continuing to grow and sharing all of your talents. And just a moment ago, you mentioned something that I wanted to hit on real quick because you were talking about when you're finally there, you're working with other humans and you get to know each other. So I've never been on a movie set. I've never done acting. So I only see the movies.
Yeah.
But with the power of like YouTube and like documentaries, I get to see a little bit about behind the scenes. My question for you is working with other humans on a set, behind the scenes, what are some maybe tips you can give for there to be a healthy environment? Because it can be a lot of work, acting and directing, and a lot of people doing a lot of things. But how would you how would you work this out on making sure that there is a healthy and good environment behind the scenes?
That is such a beautiful question. I want to thank you for asking, because I don't think this gets talked about a lot. And coming from a director and a producer standpoint, I'm going to have two answers to this, I think. Coming from a director and producer standpoint and being the person in charge of making that environment, and also being an actor on the project coming into that environment. Um, for myself, when it is a set that I am in charge of, the first thing that I really like to do before we're even on set together, before we even have a time to really sit down and get to know each other, or like be in that working environment, I think a lot of the time comes down to like when you're interviewing the people and asking questions that allows you to be able to see kind of their personality, how they mesh what their strengths are, making a huge note of that. And then when we're on set, playing into those strengths and positively playing into those strengths. I'm gonna put that caveat on there too. And just being so respectful of like their time and their energy and what they're doing. And I know this part can be a little challenging, but being keyed in to like the emotional state that all of your crew and cast are in and your own emotional state as well, because it's really challenging to be a leader of something when you are not regulated. So like being able to have your outs or communicating what that looks like, or if like there has been several times where I have been overstimulated myself, either something is not going the way that I want it to go in terms of space, time, energy, or I'm not liking what I have planned to do with the film. And so I need to take a step back and regroup and figure out how I want to improve this, because I want it to obviously work out for what the actor's doing, for what the crew is doing, and try to not waste anybody's time. So like knowing how you're feeling in the moment, being so in tune with that and communicating that with your team, and then just creating that kind of same environment for everybody, I think is so important. The other thing that I will say too, having meetings with your team at the beginning of the day can make or break your day sometimes. And just having check-in points throughout the day too, because if you're all on the same page to start off with, it's just gonna go smooth. Like it's just gonna go smooth. Or even if you're not, like, even if it doesn't go smooth, you're at least comfortable enough to be like, okay, here I'm checking in, like this isn't working. How are we gonna fix this? But just having that environment of being able to be open and communicative about that is so important. I have been on some sets where unfortunately the vibe was very rough and people were kind of walking on eggshells around each other. And it wasn't helping at all because everybody was afraid to say something because they were afraid that something was going to happen. And so, like, it kind of just continued in that process. And for like 3 or 4 days, it was like that. And I was less like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how people were still working, of course. And it eventually, something happened and it eventually worked itself out. But I was just like, this is a long time for people to kind of be like tense, you know? But I think that could have been avoided and or fixed sooner if that kind of those kinds of conversations were to have happened earlier. So that's my producer director side answer. My acting answer, I think, is really coming into just knowing your character so well and being so undeniable that when the director, the producer, or the assistant director, or costumes, makeup, whomever is coming in and they are working with you, working on you, giving you notes, things like that. You're just on it. Like you're just so comfortable. You're just so on it. And like you are just like, yep, I can make this happen. You get this shot and you move on. And also knowing how to ask questions. And that seems silly, but I feel like a lot of the time when you hear people get like bad reps, it's not necessarily because what they're saying is bad or wrong. It's sometimes just how they say it, how it's phrased. So, like, to give a concrete example, instead of coming up and being like, I don't like this line, I'm going to say this, be like, hey, I'm noticing this isn't really flowing. I have a suggestion. Are you open to hearing it? They can say no. They can still say no. And they can be like, no, I would prefer if you keep it like this. And so then the follow-up would probably or should be something along the lines of like, okay, that's cool. Do you mind if I add like a transition or something else in there just to like make it flow better? Or do you have any suggestions to help me make this flow better? You know, just stuff like that. It's being respectful. Like again, it's, you know, the director, the writer, it's like their job to make the story make sense, to make it sound good, and things along those lines. So like you want to respect their job and their time, and they also are going to do the same. Like if you're respectful to them, they're going to be respectful back. So those are my two answers.
No, I love it because like the key thing or key theme I'm hearing from this is the power of being able to communicate properly in a respectful, polite, but also being, true to yourself in a polite way, but also being able to listen and to have, well, basically communication. So I think it not only reflects for the movie sets, but any workplace.
Mhm.
I think people from whoever is listening to this can learn something from your advice today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I worked in corporate for a little bit, so I do have that background.
So, before we jump into, well, we already touched on your directing and producing, but before we really dive into that totally, before we move on from acting, I wanted to ask you from the roles you've had from childhood, working on Stuart Little to the roles that you've played more recently, are there any characters that you have portrayed that have made an impact on your life?
Ooh, characters that I've portrayed that have made an impact on my life. That's such a good question. Wow, let me think because I've played quite a bit of different things. Um, I, wow. I'm like going back through my entire like career and seeing because there's a few that stand out to me, and I don't know if it was impactful in the sense of the character that I played or just the project itself. So, okay. I think the first one that I'll say is probably when I got the lead in the first ever feature film that I did, which is titled Phantom of the Woods. It's on Amazon Prime, I think, in Tubi now. I'm like so young. It's my first ever film project, so forgive me for my acting has way evolved since then. But if that had not happened, I don't know if I would have found my film and television career as early as I found it, as quickly as I found it. It might have taken me a little bit of time to find this medium and get involved, but I'm really grateful it happened when it did because it allowed me to kind of make the decision of whether or not I wanted to continue to pursue it or not. So I think that one is probably one of the most pivotal projects, I will say. The character itself is funny because her name's Lana, which is like people you started calling me that because my name's Delaney. So they're just like, haha, that's funny. It's like really close. It's like a nickname. And I was like, please don't call me that. I want to, like, my name's Delaney. Keep it at that. But it was funny for a while there because they were so similar. That was a really, really interesting project in general, just because it was a psychological horror. So a lot of the things that you see when you watch the movie, they're not there. They're not real. And so it's like so interesting to kind of play the complexities of somebody that's going through the things that this character is going through at the time and then seeing them played out on the screen in such a, psychological way. It's a really interesting piece. But I would say fast forwarding to that, more recently, when I first moved to Pittsburgh, I didn't have a job. I came here from Europe. I didn't know the city really at all. So there was a lot of sitting at my house and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I went to school for education, which is like crazy considering how much I've talked about how I knew I wanted to be in, this creative theatrical film television world since I was like a child. But when I moved to Pittsburgh, I ended up finding a very close by talent office, I'm going to call it, who did a lot of like small scale commercial projects, the things along those lines. And she happened to be like 2 minutes from my house, like literally. And it almost felt like kismet at the time because I was just like really considering going back into it. I didn't really have anything else planned, didn't really know what was going on in like what I wanted to do for my actual adult career. And within 2 days of finding her, she'd sent me out on a commercial project for a restaurant that unfortunately no longer exists. I hope they're doing well. Um, but then I met so many people on that project, and then like that was what catapulted me to doing more film stuff here in Pittsburgh. And that was right before the pandemic, which is kind of wild because I was finally gaining some traction and stuff. But then the pandemic, I met Zane Allen, who is now my co-head, the CEO of 3BT Productions, which is the company that I do most of my work with behind the scenes, my directing and producing stuff. And he had this project called Hiriath. And Hiriath, it was another psychological film. You're going to see a pattern here. Another psychological film that I got to play a cop in. It was like a smaller bit or whatever, but that was also the project that I think I discovered what my branding was, like how I come across, more in like an authoritative kind of position, a little bit warmth, a lot of like conviction, a little bit of vulnerability, like that's, you know, my no nonsense kind of thing where I just kind of tell people how it is sometimes. That was like the first turning point where I was like, oh, like I like roles like this. And I was really grateful for the opportunity. And then Zane and I just became really, really good friends. And now we have a production company together. So it's been absolutely fantastic. And then like most recently impactful for my career and for my life. I have met a wonderful, and I mean absolutely, there's so many wonderful people here in Pittsburgh, filmmaker wise, like doing crazy great things. But I had met a really fabulous, she's also an extremely talented writer. Would probably love to come on this to talk about her writing because she's phenomenal. Um, I met her and she does a lot, but part of her projects that she does are just really like strong women, female characters, which again, right into my brand, like was absolutely fit like a glove. And she was in her senior year master's program, I think, grad program. And she had this crazy ambition where she wrote like mini scripts of stories that she had been developing over time. And then she had wrote two extended versions of two of those stories that she like wanted to do something with, like TV show kind of. And she held auditions and then she decided to like film almost little like teaser trailers for each of those projects and then two extended trailers that she did for the two of the longer ones. And she had held auditions and she cast people to kind of be like can recurring characters in all of these different projects, depending on like kind of your brand and things like that. And I don't know if I'm allowed to tell what the project is, to be honest. So I'm like trying to dance around it, but like giving her the credit because she's phenomenal. Um, but I can say my character name. My character name is Peyton, and I loved that was like the first time that I was on a set that I was like, it was so well run. Like her name's Kaylee Fitzgerald. I should have said that way earlier, but her name is Kaylee Fitzgerald, and she like runs her set so because she's been on so many huge sets. Like she's that girl. Um, her set was run so well, and it was like just the biggest set that I had been on thus far at the time. And the character was amazing, and I had such a great time. And like she really took the time to, as a director and a producer, to like work with each individual actor and like talk about the, you know, backstory of the character, what's going on, like really work the performance or like I don't want to say the performance, like just really work with the actor and like getting the performance that she wanted so authentically and organically. Because she never dictated this is exactly how you have to do something. It was just like, I want to know what your interpretation of this is. And maybe we can kind of come to this interpretation together. Like, here's kind of what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? Can we mesh things together? Things like that. And that project was more recently one of the more impactful ones just because of the process of it and the character itself. And like the script is now doing amazing rounds in the scripty world and is getting huge eyes on it. And like she deserves it. Like she's just so phenomenal. And like just being able to be a part of a project like that, it was so humbling and so amazing. But because of that project too, again, I met all of these amazing creatives and like her work was getting out there and it was getting so much attention and so many eyes. So that just catapulted my, you know, career and like and also solidifying like this is where I'm meant to be. I'm moving on, I'm moving up. So it's so good. And then most recently, I just premiered this project Thursday, literally like 4 days ago Thursday. And it's called The Fall of the House of Usher. It's based off of the Edgar Allan Poe short story. And the people that are a part of that project, that are behind that project, the creative team, Brian Marczewski, I believe is how you say his last name. Forgive me, Brian, if that's not accurate. He and his brother are like insanely talented visual effects and just story artists, storyboarders, just everything. They see so clearly this world that they're putting together and then like on screen are able to make it just mind blowing. And it's the first period piece that I've done. it was so cool. Like, I don't know how else to describe it besides it was just being so cool. Like, working with the people that I worked with on that project, like Brian and Scott have a crazy background of like things that they've done, clients that they've worked with, and things like that. So their quality and product of work that they're putting out there is just phenomenal. And when he asked me to be a part of the project, I was just like, holy cow, like I feel so honored because I've seen everything that you've done so far. Very similar to Kaylee. I mean, it was like the feeling of it was just like, oh, I'm so proud. I'm so excited. Like this makes me happy. This is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing as an actor. But also as a filmmaker and coming from the other side of it too, like seeing the creative process behind the scenes and being so involved with that, and being able to ask questions and then being open to asking, like me asking them questions. Like it's just it was so fulfilling in the best way. So that was a really long-winded answer, but I think those are the projects that I think have stood out to me so far in my career.
From your answers, again, I really see this loving relationship with creativity and how it's opened so many doors to new roles, to new projects, to producing, directing. It has also helped shape you and your brand and your way of acting. But earlier, you mentioned that you took up education. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, I did. Education.
Okay, so my question is, well, was there ever a part of you that was probably doubting that you would take this route to acting and theater? And did you have education as like another route in mind? Or
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the answer to that is yes. When I was heavily involved in theater and singing and dancing, show choir, marching band, the movies in high school, I it was we hadn't gotten to a point in the world yet where it was as accessible to people who didn't live in the major markets. And at the time, I did not live in a major market. I would have had to have moved to somewhere bigger if I really wanted to pursue that. And at the time, I wasn't sure, honestly, if I did. And I think part of that was because my family has always been incredibly supportive, incredibly supportive. But they've also been realistic, and I respect that 100%. And so when it came time to actually deciding what I wanted to do, I kind of didn't know really what I wanted to do, but I had always gravitated towards education. My grandmother was a librarian. She was in a school system forever growing up. And so I remember spending a lot of time in schools with her and then often teaching or aiding her in, vacation Bible schools during the summertime or just like creativity camps and things like that she was always volunteering to be a part of. And so, because that was also a huge part of my life, it made sense at the time to maybe consider pursuing something in education just because I had been around it for so much. And I did gravitate towards it quite a bit because it did fulfill a lot of the, authoritative, wanting to be kind of in like lead or charge of things, but also like my natural leadership abilities, but also at the same time using my creativity in like a different format. Something that I haven't talked about a lot is that I'm really crafty. I love to make things just like I just randomly like most of the time when I'm looking for gifts for people, I'll either find something that's super artsy or I'll just make it myself because I'm just like, oh, I could make that. Like that'd be kind of cool and like put a little personal spin on it. And so with teaching, you kind of have to do a lot of that. It's a lot of improv. It's a lot of making things up very last minute. And I was elementary school specifically. And so my degree is in K through 6, technically K through 8, because I had a minor in gifted and talented studies, which allowed me to go all the way up through 8th grade. So because that was also such like a natural thing that kind of aligned with my skills at the time, my family was encouraging me to consider doing that for school, for college. And so that's what I ended up going to school for. And shout out Ball State University for having one of the greatest teacher education programs in the country because they were phenomenal. I had a really good time at the school. I had a really good time in my education program. I did question it there in the middle if I wanted to actually be a teacher. Uh, and I still do question it. I mean, I'm not doing it at the moment, but like that skill set's always going to be there. And I do find myself oftentimes, whether it's not necessarily in a standard classroom, but I am often teaching. So it's like that's still a part of me. But it was just kind of crazy to think that on this path, I did take a small detour, but then ended up using it for what I'm doing now anyway. Like I will 100% say that everything that I've learned in my education courses have only helped me to be flexible when I'm on set as an actor, director, and a producer. It's allowed me to be more approachable in how I communicate with people because oftentimes when somebody is coming to something that's brand new to them, you have to figure out a way that you can teach them or educate them about it without being condescending. And that's going to be hard to do, especially when you're in a field that you're like considering yourself an expert in, you know? You don't want to come across to somebody that's brand spanking new and be like, oh my God, you're doing this all completely wrong. Get out of my way. Or coming through them and being like, okay, well, actually, this is how you're supposed to do it. And I'm just like, that's, that's not like, that's just not fun to be around, nor is it productive. So with education, because I've had so many different facets of education with people from all over the world, all different backgrounds, all different learning levels. I mean, I've literally taught preschool all the way up to seniors graduating or should be graduating, you know, high school, from countries all over the place. So when you're on a film set, it's very similar. You were having people that are coming from literally all walks of life, all different, areas of their career, in all different, levels of their career. So thank you, education, for giving me that skill set to be able to make that adaptable into what I want to be doing now.
Everybody is on a path, but
Mhm.
sometimes they may not know which is the next path to take. For you, when you were going through those crossroads, was there something that drew you more towards the career that you're in now, or was it just something in your heart that you just had to follow?
I think it's a little bit of both of those things. My heart has always pulled me in a bunch of different directions. So being able to decide which direction I want to take has always been a challenge. And I came to a point in my professional career as an educator that it's run its course. I had done that part of me. I'd satisfied that part of me, that educator side. Did a job where I was teaching wonderful children. Honestly, that's the part of it that I miss the most is the kids that were unaccompanied, orphaned, often didn't have family in the States. And so they were put in the program that I used to work at. And once I had kind of settled in that side of my career, I realized that I was missing the other part of like the creative part of me that really did want to be making films or being in theater, being on stage, performing, things like that. And what made me realize really that I was like, I think I need to put this other career on hold and just follow my true dreams was when and this was also during the pandemic, so this is like there was a lot of feelings. So people had some like real true awakenings, I feel like during the pandemic. But this education job was the first job that I had gotten when I graduated. So earlier I had mentioned that I came here from Europe. That was also due to my education job. Um, when I was in Europe, I was studying abroad and I was teaching in Germany. And it made me realize when I was there how different the education system is abroad versus in the United States. And it was kind of like my first like, ooh, I don't know if I actually want to go back to the United States and be a teacher. No offense to this beautiful country, but like our education system is flawed. And the way that teachers are treated and the way that things are gone, that happen. And this is not the case in every single school system in every single district, but a large majority, I feel like, of teachers could probably relate to this statement. We're just not treated the same way. We're not treated fairly, and it's really unfortunate. And in Europe, I had a taste of what it was like to actually be respected as an educational professional. And that was my first, like, oh my gosh, I don't ever want to be, I could not teach in a traditional American school. I would have to teach in a non-traditional American school. So my first job when I came to Pittsburgh was literally that. It was a non-traditional American school. And I was just like, wow, when you put those intentions out there, like the world gives you what you need, right? And then after I had done that for like 5 years and I had moved up pretty quickly. And a lot of people sometimes look at me and be like, why would you give up that kind of a money, like kind of money? Like why would you give up that sort of stability to do film, which is like so unstable. It's like one of the most unstable careers you could have is being an actor. And I was like, because I was missing that side. Like I was pouring all of my time and energy, literally all of my time and energy, like oftentimes doing like 10, 12, sometimes longer days, preparing for school programs, making sure that the kids' needs were met, making sure that I had all my paperwork done, like a lot of the admin duties, because by this point too, I had moved up to being like the school program lead, if you will. So there was just a lot more going on. And I wasn't being fulfilled. Like that dream, that little child in me, was like screaming to be like, hey, like you're not fulfilling the side of you anymore because you just don't have the time or the energy to really do anything about it. So I quit my job. I quit my job. I literally looked at my husband, and again, this is in the middle of the pandemic, and like my salary was what was getting us through these times because he wasn't working because what he does, he works in the restaurant industry and everything was closed. So like he was literally like, what do I do? And I looked at him and I was like, how much longer? How much longer do I have to stay here? Can I put an end date on my job? Because I really want to be doing not this right now. And I really need to be fulfilling the side of me that's not getting fulfilled at all. And he was like, can you last 3 months? And I was like, yes. As long as I have an end date, I am fine. And he was like, okay. So I ended up leaving my job in September of 2022. We immediately went on vacation for like 10 days. And I never looked back. And then after that, I heavily pursued what I wanted to be doing. I traveled. I met friends that I had seen in a really long time. I went to a bunch of concerts because, oh my God, live music is the best thing ever invented. And what was I missing out on for so many years? I'm like, hello, Delaney, you were literally a part of live music. What do you mean? What are you doing? So I did that. I fulfilled those things that I hadn't been doing for myself for a while. And literally that like following, this is 2023, that following year, I I set the intention, I set the goal to be like, I am going to pursue acting. This is what I want. So I looked for different acting schools. I took classes with a bunch of different people to kind of see what I liked, what was going to stick, what felt right to me. I studied Stanislavski, I studied Meisner, liked Stanislavski, did not like Meisner, um, and just found really what ticked and what made sense. And then one thing that was like wildly impactful for me now is that I literally said, I have nothing to lose at this point. Nothing. Because what else am I doing right now? Went on, bought myself tickets to this acting conference that was held out in LA and went in with the full intention of not having any expectations whatsoever. I was like, I'm going to go see what this is about. I'm going to learn. I'm going to make friends. I'm going to meet people. Like, that was all that I set out to do. And while I was there, I did exactly that. I made amazing friends. I met incredible coaches, one of which who I'm still studying with right now. It's Nancy Scanlon at the Dream Lab Studio. She's phenomenal. And ever since I've started coaching very strategically and consistently with her specifically, I have had some of the biggest career momentums, spikes, things that have happened to me since then. And, we're going in 2 years now with that. And I think that specific, me quitting my job in 2022 and then going to that conference in May of 2023 were like the two biggest life-changing events that have happened within like a 8-month time span, 6-month time span, whatever that time is, because without that, without taking that leap of faith, I would not be where I'm at right now.
So if you never quit your job, you would have never gone to the acting conference in LA and met all those people?
Butterfly effect, right? Probably not, because if I didn't quit my job, I wouldn't have been looking for acting coaches and acting schools, and that opportunity would not have come up for me because I wouldn't have been seeking it out. It wasn't aligning with the
Hmm.
energy I was putting out in the world at the time. But quit my job, and then I said, yes, that's what I wanted to do. And then that opportunity came up, and I said, balls to the wall, let's go. And changed my life in the best way possible.
It kind of reminds me of me.
Yeah, a little bit. When
Yeah.
you said that recently, I was just like, I know exactly where you're at. Well, not exactly, of course, but
No, because
similar feelings because,
if I didn't move on from my job, I wouldn't have put myself out there, and then that's how I've connected with so many people, and I've connected with you.
yeah.
Um, it's just opening so many doors, and also for me as a podcaster, I'm seeing. I mean, because now I'm getting more opportunities. It's like, well, I have to evolve quick. And take it real serious. It's not just a hobby. This is serious stuff and a
Mhm.
passion behind it. And we see the passion behind your love for creativity. And I would like to now ask you, how did it evolve from singing, dancing, acting into producing and directing?
Ooh, this is a question I think about a lot, actually. And it's because a dear, very, very, very dear, dear, dear friend of mine who is no longer with us, is the reason why I continue to stay in this world. And even when I was doing my education, um, side track, side plan, if you will, this person, Cam Clark, always encouraged me to stay true to my passion and always fight for what I want and be creative and continue to be creative. And when we were doing our second movie together, which he was the one that was spearheading that, he told me, you should be a director one day. You would be really good at this. And I was like, you're funny. That's never happening. I have no desire. I don't want anything to do with it. And he was like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'm just saying, one of these days, you would be a really good director. You should really consider it. And he was never pushy about it. He would remind me every once in a while, just like kind of poking fun to be like, you sure you don't want to be a director? Are you sure? And I always told him I was so adamant that I never wanted to do it ever. And in late 2018, 2019 timeframe, I had met with this other creative in Pittsburgh on a separate project that he was doing. And he had sent me his script and we went through it. And I was giving him all these notes and stuff like that at the time. And he was like, he was like, I'm looking for a director. Would you maybe want to consider doing it? And at the time, I was still kind of like, I don't really know. Like, directing's not really for me. But the longer that I was like on this project, I was like, okay, wait, I know so much about this now. I feel like this is like a baby of mine at this point. So I was like, I'm gonna take you up on your offer. Are you still okay with that? And he was like, yes, 100%, of course. And so I messaged my friend, and I was like, you're never gonna believe it. I was like, but I'm directing my first feature. And he was like, oh my God. He was like, first off, congratulations. And then secondly, you decided to go all in and do your first directorial project as a feature film. And I was like, yeah, might as well go big or go home, right? And he was like, I told you. He was like, I fucking told you that you were going to be a director. And I was like, listen, we're just not going to talk about that, okay? But he is very much the reason why I felt confident enough to be able to kind of step into this position. And then obviously aided by amazing creatives along the way. My first feature film was rough. As a first-time director, I think I was like 23, 24. I was a child, honestly. And having very little to no directorial experience before that, um, it was a huge learning curve, learning opportunity in every sense of the word. And earlier I had mentioned communicating is such a big part of like being able to run a solid set and, getting along with everybody. I did not know how to communicate at that time. I had no idea how to communicate appropriately at that time. I thought that I had to come in and, me being a female director too, there was already a lot of pressure on me at that point. So I thought I had to like prove myself. And I definitely did not go about things the way I should have gone about things in some circumstances. And then there's other parts of it that I'm very proud of. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity, to that creative who asked me to be the director on the film, and to Cam Clark, who always continued to support me no matter what path I decided to take, knowing my potential more than before I really knew my potential. So bless him. I hope he is doing well in the heavens above.
Can you share some of the movies you've directed and produced?
Yes. Wow. There's my first one that I've ever directed, and well, I would say I didn't do a lot of producing on this one. I definitely was heavier on the directing and then acted in it as well. The first one was The Little Mouse. It is a horror film. It's also on Amazon. And followed by that, I did a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of stuff with 3BT Productions specifically. And oh gosh, we've done so many short films, so many short films, and two feature films. First one I mentioned earlier, I wasn't necessarily a part of that one in the producing and directing side of it. This was more prior to me stepping into the producer kind of a role, but that Horiath was the tipping point for those productions. But since Horiath, I mean, Zane and I have directed and produced Passengers, which is a short film, and
Hmm.
it's coming out soon, so that's exciting. We did Together, which is hilarious. It's called that. We've done For Mariah. We've done, oh my gosh, there's so many. There's so many. I'm trying to think of all of the like fun small ones. Lore 2, which actually just had its theatrical release on Thursday as well. I full on directed that one and then helped produce it. That one's cool. And most recently, we're in the midst of creating one feature film that we just shot a kick-ass, what do I want to call it? A kick-ass, um, not necessarily like a teaser. I'm gonna call it a proof of concept. It looks so good. It looks so good. And we're actually wrapping up our second feature film called Max, Son of the Damned. And it's been about 2.5, three. Well, the project itself, Max, Son of the Damned, has been about 2.5, 3 years in production. The concept of that project is like 6. So it's kind of crazy that it's finally coming out, coming together, and will be premiering. Oh my gosh. January of 2026 is our goal. It's definitely going to premiere in 2026, but January 2026 is the goal. And we're having a cast and crew screening for it coming up in like 2 weeks so that our amazing team, because we had probably over 60 people, 60 creatives working on this project over time with everybody that's been involved, and that's including cast and crew and editing, behind the scenes, pre-production, production, and post-production. So we're excited for them to be able to see it because it's been a long time coming, and it's it's good. It's good.
Well, thank you, Delaney, for sharing well, first of all, how you started with creativity. You just pretty much were born natural, and just your love and how it evolved and how you grew. Thank you so much. And before we wrap this up, I have just a couple more questions. The first one is, are there any other creatives out there that you suggest we keep an eye out for?
Oh my gosh. So many, so many phenomenal creatives out there. A few I've mentioned, I think, throughout this talk. Kaylee Fitzgerald, somebody that I hold near and dear to my heart. She is the incredible talent behind some amazing scripts. She's a screenwriter, scriptwriter, storyteller, director, producer. She's kind of the Jill of all trades. And she's got some really cool things coming up. So she would be somebody I would say follow, keep an eye on, because she's gonna do big things. And a few others are, well, our production company, of course, 3BT Productions, and Zane Allen, Tom Frey, Ada Odeze. She's super cool. They're all of our like core team members that are involved in 3BT Productions, but also do a lot of their own projects that they're involved with on the side too. Phenomenal people. Again, they're all going places. I 100% know this. We're all going places together, right? That's how it is. And then more recently, oh my gosh, incredible people that I was able to screen Fall of the House of Usher with recently, which is the Lumen Productions, people behind Lumen Productions. They have some of the most stunning work that I've seen visually, because they are I don't even know, they're a powerhouse team of like visual effects and like the creativity that goes into all of their projects and just the thought behind it, and also just how they shoot things. Like it's incredible. So I would say that those definitely are some of the people I would keep an eye out for
Thank
right
you.
now. Hmm.
Excellent. And my final question is, Delaney, why is creativity important for you?
Oh wow. Creativity is important to me because it fulfills the inner child in me of being able to just put something together to create something without any sort of definition or lines. Like I can just do what I want and make it look how I want it to look, and get to make that decision power, and also just love the process without like judging it. It's just beautiful. And I mean that in every sense of the word, whether it be some of my hands-on things that I create, like physical things, the little like trinkets and stuff that I make for other people, or if I'm making like my film projects or even my acting roles. Like it's just kind of cool to be able to put the Delaney spin on things and kind of leave a little bit of my legacy of into the world, in a beautiful way, just adding a lot of like color and life to things. So that's why it's important to me.
Well, thank you so much, Delaney, for being a guest on my podcast. And those in the audience, don't forget to check out her work. She's done some work on Amazon, Tubi. You can find it there. Also, stay tuned for 2026 for the film.
Max, son of the damned.
All right, so check that out. Stay tuned for it. 2026. I'll for sure be watching it. And Delaney, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. And before I forget, to the audience, don't forget to subscribe, to like this episode. Please leave a comment that kind of helps the algorithm. Or if you're watching this on Spotify, please give a nice review, and please share this episode so that more people can discover the amazing love for creativity presented by our special guest today, Delaney. So Delaney Hathaway. So again, Delaney, thank you so much for sharing your love for creativity with me and the audience.
Thank you, Ryan, so much for having me and giving us a platform to be able to share our work.